everyone, and welcome to Insights podcast. I'm Leon Herszon, your host, and I have the pleasure to have with me Susanne Madsen. So, Susanne, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate that. And maybe we can start by you telling us your story, your background. What is your journey, considering that you are deeply involved in coaching, leadership development, and the things that you do today?
Yeah. Well, that's a nice big open question, and thank you for having me, first of all. I'm guessing that many of the listeners have some kind of project management background. Is that something I can assume? So it's relevant to say that I worked as a project manager in London, in the city of London, for probably about 17 years. I was running projects. I was a consultant. I was running projects for JP Morgan. Then I joined Standard Bank. It's a South African bank, biggest bank sub-Sahara. Anyway, I was running big projects in technology. And then I think what's possibly interesting for people to hear is that I went on a leadership course. This was in 2008. It was the very week that the Lehman Brothers went bust, September 2008. I remember it because I was in this residential leadership program, 5 days away from the office, nice hotel, and everybody was like, what is happening? There's something happening, because when you work for a bank, this is very relevant, of course. But what happened during that leadership program was that I was coached for the first time. So I was not coached by a professional coach. We were paired up. I was paired up with a gold trader. And we were sent off. It was a nice day. We sat on a bench in a park, and we were given this piece of paper with lots of questions on, and we should just follow like the formula for coaching and ask each other questions about the problem we came with. And I came with a problem: help, I'm exhausted. I work too much, I'm tired, what should I do? And it was just an exercise, but I did not expect that I would have one of the biggest aha moments of my life. Because within the space of this hour, it's something really changed, something clicked inside of my brain, because it's very hard to describe in words what actually happened, but I felt that the answers are within me. If I feel that if I want to go home at 5 p.m., which was actually quite a scary thought, it was like 5 p.m., just imagine. Because at that point I was working till 7, 8. If I decide that, I can do it. It's actually myself creating my own limitations. And it meant that I had this aha moment. That means that if I change my thoughts about anything, I'll be free to do anything. And I know it sounds simple, but we are all limited by something. And in that moment, I just felt truly empowered. And I felt so inspired to work with my own belief system. And the other thing that happened that week was my second realization was, oh my God, project managers need leadership. And so those two aha moments combined meant that I completely changed my trajectory. I began to get interested in how we can help project managers become better leaders and not just task-oriented managers. I began to write my first book. I began to coach project managers with whom I was working. My managers were kind of okay with that. Oh, I miss a piece of detail, which was that I qualified as a coach because I got so interested in this that I took a whole coaching diploma. So
very nice.
I think that's kind of describing what actually happened and why I began to focus little by little, more on coaching. Initially, I was coaching my colleagues. And then at some point in 2013, when I was working for Citigroup, I thought, I hope this will be my last corporate job. And I left to set up on my own as a trainer, coach, facilitator. Yeah.
So pivotal moment, 2008, 2013, when you made the decision to...
Yeah.
All right, very good. So you written some very nice books, by the way. Thank you. The Power of Project Leadership and How to Do the Inner Work, right? Very interesting. What motivated you to write each of them? How they are connected? How do you connect those two?
Yeah, so I'll just for those who are watching the Power Project Leadership, it's a second edition, and it won actually the PMI's award for the best book in just after it came out. This is, as I said, it was the second edition that won the award. Actually, the first book I wrote is not even any of these. I wrote the Project Management Coaching Workbook. And because I'd written the Project Management Coaching Workbook just before I became self-employed, it was 2012. When I then started working for myself, I got one day a call from one of the UK's biggest independent publishers, Coke & Page. And they said, we've done our analysis and we think there's a gap in the market for a book on project leadership. And we would like you to write it.
Wow.
And at that point, I almost recovered from having written a very big book, 75,000 words. And again, they wanted 75,000, which is standard for a business book. And I was like, oh my God, another big book. I'm just setting out to work on my own. I need to do sales. Do I really have time to write another big book? But I could not bear the thought of somebody else writing it. And the book has so defined my career. It was absolutely the right decision. But I needed to motivate myself, because initially when you get an assignment like that, I felt I needed to write the book for them because I've written a contract. There was a deadline. And that's not very motivating. It felt like a chore. So I thought, no, I can't write a book like this. I needed to be my book. I need to feel intrinsically motivated. So I had to go through a little exercise of really connecting with the book and feeling that it was my book, which it was. I could write what I wanted. It's just that they commissioned me. And it's been a very important book for me.
And how those two are connected?
Yes, good question.
The two books.
Good question. So the first one is all about how I can transition from management to leadership in a project role. And the second one, how to do the inner work, is much more self-help book. It's much more about emotions. And I will tell you why. It's because I've been coaching now since 2009. I've coached a lot of people all over the planet. I've coached mostly people in the project space, but also executives. And oftentimes what I say to people is I can coach you at different levels. I can coach you at a skill level, but mostly we go much deeper, and I coach them at something that's holding them back or limiting beliefs, or why do I behave the way I do in a certain aspect? Why do I get angry when this happens? Why do I get sad when I get feedback? Whatever it is. And so I found that there was a need for a book which goes deeper, which is the inner work, which is understanding something more about how I am wired as a person. So that's what the book intends. And there are 24 exercises in the book that really goes deeper into who I am and why do I think the way I do? What are my values? And also how can I work with my nervous system? Because I work with a lot of people, I coach a lot of people who feel overwhelmed, they feel stressed out. And so there's a need to actually really be able to calm down our nervous system with perhaps some meditation or breath work as well.
So with so many people that you coached, you mentioned that people try to find what is holding them back, and you help them to find that. What is the number one thing in general that you think that holds people back?
Gosh, that's a big question, because obviously we're all different. What I notice is that many of the people I have in my leadership programs, because sometimes I coach the ones that are also in the leadership program. Some people really lack assertiveness, and other people have too much assertiveness.
Too much, right?
Some people are like a bull in a china shop. They lack sensitivity towards others, and others have so much sensitivity that they really They really hold themselves back. And so we have people on opposite sides of the spectrum. Perhaps what's common for them is this awareness of where am I in relation to others, and do I dare to begin to do something differently? But if you put me really, really on the spot and really asked me to name one thing, I would probably say this lack of confidence. And when I say lack of confidence, I don't mean it at a superficial level, because even those people who are a bull in a china shop, those project managers or project leaders or program managers who are very assertive, sometimes it masks them not feeling actually very confident, very self-assured, deeply inside. So they feel they need to just, let's say, give orders or boss other people around. So that's quite common. We all are actually really in doubt. We're all looking for validation. Not all. Most people are looking for validation. Mm-hmm. We want to be good enough. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. We don't go to work thinking I want to be loved, but actually we want to be feeling good enough and accepted. And and if we don't get that validation, a lot of people will start feeling and thinking, oh, maybe I'm not doing a good enough job. And then all the narrative, the inner narrative is going to kick off, takes us down a rabbit hole of maybe I'm going to get fired. You'd be surprised how many people have some kind of negative mind chatter.
Would you say that imposter syndrome is something very common?
Yes, I would say the word imposter syndrome is maybe at the extreme end. Mm-hmm. So I don't perhaps coach so many who have a true imposter syndrome, but variations of that, to some extent, degrees of that is what I want to say. Yes, definitely. Yeah, and some degree of it is healthy, because otherwise we can just be very arrogant, perhaps. But many people doubt themselves unnecessarily, and they are so afraid of actually becoming arrogant that they put themselves down, and that doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah. So, and by the way, congratulations for getting the award for your book. And let's talk about the power of project leadership. You emphasize in this book the shift from managing tasks to leading people, right? And I think project managers around the globe, they might agree that invest so much time on tasks and less time on strategic things or in managing people, leading people. Why do you think many project management struggle with this transition from tasks to leading people?
Yeah, another good question. Why is that? Perhaps it is because we are not schooled that way. I think most countries, I'm probably not exaggerating if I say that most countries, all the kids go to school because we are learning that there is a right or a wrong answer. And I think it's quite rational. I think now there is more space for project work with kids, and school has changed, but by and large, we are learning about stuff. We're learning to calculate. We are learning to read. We are learning things that there is an answer to, and you submit some kind of assignment and you get a mark. It's very hard to get a mark on being a leader, because a lot of it is about emotional intelligence. It's not about me having all the knowledge, which just this super manager who just is in control and tells the whole team what to do. That's not leadership. Just some people think that's leadership, but it's not leadership. That's a super manager. It's a superhero, right? I fly in and I save the day. And I see a lot of project managers being in that mode of, I need to fly in and get everything lined up and tell people what to do. And management sometimes likes that. We have a go-to person, a safe pair of hands, But leadership is much more about empowering. And what does that mean? It means that I need to understand how to empower others, need to understand how to literally give some of my authority to others, to run with it, to make decisions, to experiment, to make failure. Or to fail if we don't want them to fail, but that could happen. And do we learn about that in school? Do we learn about behavior? Do we learn about how to build other people up? Do we learn about emotional intelligence? I don't think so. I have heard that in some kindergartens, kids are beginning to learn about, how are you feeling right now? I feel angry because he stole my toy. Okay, shall we go and ask him to apologize? I think it's beginning to come in, but nowhere near where we need to be.
So you mentioned emotional intelligence, self-awareness,
Yeah.
To our viewers here, project leaders, project managers, especially the ones that want to lead, as you mentioned, what can they do to develop those skills?
Yeah, and actually, I have a whole webinar on YouTube. It's all free if people wanna watch it. But actually, my own point is we don't develop emotional intelligence by reading about it, but it creates awareness. It's in the doing that we create it. But the very first step is actually acknowledging that there is more to it than the task side. So if I delegate something to a team member and I expect them to get it done simply because they're on the team and simply because they get a salary, that is a task-oriented mindset. So how do I begin to shift? Number one, acknowledge that maybe there is more to it. I'm telling you, I'm coaching some people who are not acknowledging that. They're like, no, I don't want to motivate people. They come to work and I expect them to be professionals. Well, okay, but you're not going to get the best out of your team by having that attitude. So if people just want to pause for a moment and be curious about others, ask more questions, be curious about why they behave the way they do. Why did they close down when you gave them feedback and you think they should just be able to take it on board? But they didn't. What happened? Be curious about it. And be curious about your own responses. Why did you get angry when your team member didn't deliver what they said they were going to deliver? I'm not saying there's anything wrong in getting angry. I'm just saying it's that curiosity about why we behave the way we do. So I think that's the first step. And maybe if people want to create a little system, they can maybe take out 15 minutes at the end of the work week and reflect on how did I come across, what were some of the situations that were tricky, not with a view to criticize ourselves or be overly critical, but with a view to be curious without judgment. And then, of course, there are specific things we can do. We can work with a coach, we can get feedback, but just that curiosity will get us quite far.
Very good. And to our viewers, check it out on YouTube. I think it's going to be useful. So look into your books, right? You often talk about purpose, values, and energy management. Very interesting, energy management. Which of these do you find leaders neglect the most? And what is the consequence? Is purpose, value, or energy management?
Gosh, I think that let's start by saying it could be all three, but if I have to think about it, I would say that we can compensate for purpose in our private lives. So if I am a project manager and I don't find a lot of purpose, maybe I can fill up my bucket in my private space. I can jump out of airplanes, or I can volunteer, whatever. Yeah. So maybe it is not so strongly visible, but I think the lack of energy is very strongly visible because it shows up at work. If I work too much, if I'm drained, which many people are, this is one of the reasons I wrote How to Do the Inner Work, because so many people are overwhelmed. We want to be the hero project manager. We want to take everything on our own shoulders. We think about work when we're not at work. And so with a few exceptions, some people, they close the door, they go home, and they have great fun, and they think about work the next day they come to work. But most people are not good at energizing themselves. They feel drained. And it's sad to see that. For me, it's sad.
Do you compare the energy with motivation?
Not necessarily. I think if we have motivation, we can have more energy, but we can also get burned out and depleted because I have sometimes so much energy for my work that I work too much. I overdo it. I overuse a strength. There's no balance, so I get depleted. And sometimes I ask too much of my team, so they also get depleted. And we set unrealistic deadlines, or somebody sets unrealistic deadlines. It may not be the project manager. It could be the sponsor or the client. And we expect people to work weekends and evenings. But I think the good news is that it doesn't necessarily take a lot to turn it around, because I was in that situation as a project manager. I felt overwhelmed. I felt exhausted. And I thought I needed to change my whole career. But actually, we can begin to do something that energizes us. Everybody who's listening to this will be able to think of something that they love doing, and it doesn't take a day to do. It could be some people love to play an instrument, some people just want to go for a walk around the block, some people who are spiritual, they want to pray. Whatever it is, we can all think of something we can do maybe in 10 minutes, and it's going to begin to replenish us, sorry.
Yeah. Nice. You already mentioned a little bit, but I want to explore a little more about the internal blockers. The most common internal blockers that you see on your coaching clients. And what do you recommend them to do to overcome those blockers?
Well, working with a book like How to Do the Inner Work is a good start. Working with a coach is obviously an amazing option if people have the financial means to do it. So I would say they are the two options. Either you work through it yourself or you work with a coach. Could be obviously if I have a lot of issues, then I would definitely recommend a therapist.
Mm-hmm. In your perspective, what are the most common inner blockers?
Well, I think we mentioned one of them a moment ago, which is this lack of confidence. So what is an inner blocker? It's something we say to ourselves which is holding us back. So it could be I say to myself, oh, I'm not good at presenting.
Yeah.
I hate presenting. And because I keep saying that to myself, when I need to start presenting something in a meeting, I begin to get sweaty palms, my heartbeat starts, I look flustered because I get into a stress response. So, the biggest fear, apparently, apart from the fear of dying, is the fear of presenting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's a common one. Obviously, a lot of managers are getting used to it. But I come more across, if we go back to the lack of confidence, I think that's a bigger blockage I see. People are worried they're not good enough, and they're saying that they're talking themselves down. I'm not good enough. And actually, one of the first chapters of my book, I'm talking about one of the exercises, identify your strengths. Because we have a negativity bias, all of us. Most people, we're built that way because we're built to survive. So if you go and you get feedback from a manager in your yearly appraisal and he or she tells you 5 things that you're doing well and 5 things you could improve on, we will tend to gravitate and think about the 5 things we can improve on. So we tend to think more about our limitations and our shortcomings than we do about our strengths. So I remind people, and that's what I do in the book as well, I remind people of their strengths, and I get them to identify their strengths, and I get them to take ownership for their strengths. It's not enough to think about what I'm good at. I need to really feel it. So I have an exercise to help them embody it and feel that. But I think this lack of confidence is one of the biggest inner limitations. And in project management in particular, it can show itself by I feel I need to do it all. I feel I need to be the superhero project manager who knows it all, who's in control, who tells others what to do, and that can then lead to burnout, and it can become this vicious circle.
All right, so now let's take a look on cultural differences, generation differences. I'm pretty sure in your practice you have different cultural backgrounds. You might have different generations coming to you and ask for advice, right? Is there a real difference in how people approach leadership and inner work based on their background, their culture, or generation?
I'm actually asked this quite a lot. It's because I think it's an interesting question, because we all know that there are cultural differences. And I've been to the Far East to run leadership programs as well. I've been to Malaysia, China, Indonesia, as well as the US, as well as all of Europe, different sectors. And what the corporations always say is, do you have experience within our industry and our culture? Mostly they want to know about the industry because they think that their situation is unique. They think that in oil and gas, we have this set of issues, and in high tech, we have this set of issues. And actually, in all the work I've done, I find that our challenges are universal. The tendency to be task-oriented is universal. Not universal, I'm not saying everybody is like that, but I see that in project management all over. I would say, if anything, it's engineers, because I've worked with a lot of engineers. Those industries where I'm trained in, very rational, very logical methodology, we need to develop the emotional intelligence even more. So, and I coach at the moment several people from China, and they have a different work culture. Just this morning, I had a conversation with a lady who told me that her son is 16, and he gets home, and it's very normal, it's common for his age group. He gets home at 10 p.m. from school.
Oh, wow.
He goes to bed at 1 p.m. He sleeps at 1 a.m. He sleeps at 2 a.m. because he's on his phone. He gets 4.5 hours sleep. And this is going to go on for 3 years. And the lady I'm coaching, his mum, she gets 3.5 hours sleep. And that will continue for 3.5 years because of this setup with this crazy school. So the work ethic and the culture is definitely different, but when it comes to the leadership challenges, they are very much the same.
Because we are all humans, right? Doesn't
Exactly.
matter the background or
Exactly.
anything like that, we're humans.
Exactly. And I find that if people learn to tune in, to ask questions, and to notice, to develop this sensitivity towards others, then we don't assume that somebody, we don't make assumptions about people. I mean, we always will make assumptions because, again, we're human, but we are much better at tuning into the person in front of us, whether they are from South America or from Norway or Taiwan. So we get very far with developing our emotional intelligence muscle will help us to, let's say, work with many different cultures because we're better at tuning in and asking and perhaps even setting expectations.
Let's talk about AI, right? What is your perspective on the impact of AI on leadership, project management, and how can a human-centered leadership remain relevant? I think that's something that everybody's struggling right now, right?
Yeah, it's a hot potato question. And I wish you hadn't asked it. No, I'm just kidding. But it's
Too late.
It's just so difficult to give a good answer. But you're asking about my perception. So I'll the answer is I don't know. I don't know because we haven't even seen. I think we're beginning to understand what some of the potentials are, but it's probably so far-reaching that we can't even imagine. What I hope, let me tell you what I hope. I hope that we'll get to a place where AI becomes this really good task-oriented friend that takes the mundane tasks away from me.
Yeah.
And I had this thought, imagine if, and who knows, maybe it already exists. I can speak to this chatbot and I can say, I'm starting a project on the 1st of July. The sponsor has told me, blah, 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 all of this. I can think of these risks I've been told of. From what I know, this is the scope. From what I know, I have 3 team members. A 5th one will join in September, whatever. So I give this chatbot or this AI all my information. And within a split second, I get a project initiation come out with a lot of red missing parts. And it will say, this is your priority right now. You haven't defined the scope. There's a big risk in your team profile. And it just becomes this really good friend who can analyze stuff for me. I think that would be amazing. It would take so much grunt work away from us. I think that would be really good. But the AI will not become the person, the AI, to speak to my team members, to have these difficult conversations, to set expectations. I don't think so. But maybe it can free me up to have more human-centered conversations, because end of the day, we lead through conversations.
Yeah.
That's my hope. I have no idea if it will happen.
And I agree with you. I think if on the project management aspect, if you can take care of tasks and, as you said, mundane activities and things that just takes our time, it frees us to do strategic thinking, to take care of our teams, to have the human a relationship that AI will not be able to do the same way as we can. At least that's what we expect, right? So thank you for sharing that. Looking back at your career, for young generations, people starting their career now, right? Is there anything that you wish you had done earlier that you would like to share with them that they can do that?
I wish that I had been in therapy in my 20s. And I actually really mean that. Because my perception, first of all, I didn't have time to do that. I was working. I didn't know it was necessary. I felt that if I did that, it was because I was ill. Mm-hmm. But I would, today I have a different perception. When I started working for myself, I finally found time to delve into some of my own emotional blockages. It turned out that I was not very good at expressing my emotions. I was not very good at feeling my emotions. And in the beginning, when my therapist asked me, how are you feeling? I would say all sorts of things, and she would say, that's not a feeling. And I would get very frustrated. We didn't even have the same language. And so I've been on this journey to develop my own emotional intelligence and to be able to notice my needs, express my needs, listen to other people's needs, all of that. And I wish I'd done that 2 decades earlier. Now, but nobody, it wasn't kind of in my environment. It wasn't kind of made, I guess, it wasn't available. And I didn't know that it was really a thing. I thought it was just for people who are mentally ill. And it's not. It's definitely not. So I really think that's where project managers should invest. I'm not saying everybody needs therapy. I'm saying you will understand how to plan a project. You'll get that. Because by nature of what you're doing, it's the other stuff that doesn't come naturally, that we're not trained in. That's, I think, learn about psychology, but don't learn about psychology from a theoretical framework. Learn about it in a practical sense, relating to others, behaviors. And actually, when we think about it, Leon, isn't it not funny? We grow up in families, we go to school, we are surrounded by people all the time, but many of us haven't learned these basic interactions of harmonizing, of talking about how we feel, talking about why we get triggered by certain things, and then managing our responses. It's actually, once we know how, it's not rocket science, but most of us haven't been taught it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So besides the great books that you published, what book or books would you recommend that were instrumental for you professionally or personally? It could be technical book, something else, 1 or 2 books that you would like to recommend people to read.
Yeah, I often refer to Liz Wiseman's book, The Multipliers. It's not a brand new book. it's probably about 7-8 years by now, if not more. And she's written several books since this one as well. But what's really good about that book is that it talks about leaders who are diminishers and what behaviors they exhibit. And she's interviewed many leaders. And then she also talks about leaders who are multipliers, who get the best out of others. And so that's an interesting book to put that in perspective. So that's a good one that I often recommend. I personally often read other types of books. At the moment, I'm reading a book by Dawson Church called Spiritual Intelligence, for listeners who are interested in something different, because it turns out that in our brain there is some circuits that we can turn on if we practice meditation that makes us more able to feel elevated states of emotion. But what I really find interesting in this research, because it's a book where research meets spirituality, is that by following certain sets of proven meditation techniques, not only can they sharpen the mind, increase memory, but they can reverse Alzheimer's. And I find that so mind-boggling in a time when so many people struggle with cognitive decline, that there are proven, because they hook people up to scanning machines and all sorts, where they can measure, they can take brain scans before, and then after 6 months they take brain scans again. And it's incredible. So we need to stay cognitively alert. So actually, yes, we can learn about leadership, but looking after our brains and doing something for our well-being, because being in a stressful state, is not good for us.
Yeah. All right, Susanne, final words for our viewers here. Let's wrap up. What would you like to say?
Wow! Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. Just maybe on this last point, because we didn't talk about stress, and it's really so common for people, especially these days with everything that's going on and needing to deliver faster and quicker, and that we and being able to be pinged on the mobile phone and on the laptop at any time. We really need to make sure we take time to de-stress and to feel compassion for ourselves. Don't be so hard on yourself. You are, I'm sure, if you're listening to this, you are some hard-working project manager or program manager. Give yourself some credit. Yeah, take downtime and pat yourself on the back. Most people deserve it more than they think.
Thank you. Susanne, thank you again so much. I look forward for our next conversation, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.